Welcome from San Diego, California. We are reaching you in English, Spanish, and Portuguese live through a unique and complex international telecommunications network via satellite, microwave, and cable. The International Training Center at San Diego State University brings you and us together once again through this original video conference program, which joins distinguished organizations representing education, business, and government in Mexico, Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, Ecuador, Brazil, Bolivia, Paraguay, and Argentina. We also welcome Spain, the United States of America, and the Organization of American States in Washington, D.C., and the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD, in Geneva, Switzerland. Today, we will examine the New Economy Organization, its e-resources, tools, and global strategies. This is the third conference of the year 2001 series on New Generation Knowledge for Productivity and Global Success. My name is Farhad Saba, and I will be moderating today's program. The New Economy Organization is a concept rapidly becoming a reality in our increasing technology-based productive environment dependent on e-resources, telecommunications, and many complex tools for managing and synthesizing strategic information. This organizational model is truly a new generation model. That is, it is more productive, modern, agile, effective, flexible, visionary, and multinational. It penetrates markets and attracts allies without regard to borders or traditional preferences. This important video conference will present an update of this organizational phenomenon that is now impacting education, business, and government. The invited speakers will review the key characteristics of this new model of productivity, particularly its global competitiveness, and will propose steps we should all take in our organizations to keep pace with this challenge and to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that have been created by the recent world economic and business expansion. This has given birth to the new Fortune E50 list of companies, the technology stock exchange NASDAQ in New York, its expansion to Europe, and the growing global securities and exchange electronic market. Let me introduce to you the speakers for today, Dr. Kenneth Golden and Dr. Lawrence Rhyne. Dr. Golden is a principal in a startup internet business, the International Technology and Training Corporation, currently being developed to provide information and communication technology training, career opportunities, and distance education to business, government organizations, and institutions of higher education in Latin America, the Middle East, and India. He is also president of Golden Professional Corporation in Encinitas, California, specializing in virtual teamwork, change leadership, team building, and organizational communication. Dr. Golden is a visiting professor of management at Webster University in St. Louis, Missouri, and has been an assistant dean at San Diego State University and an assistant professor at the University of Arkansas. Dr. Golden was invited to join Phi Beta Delta, the Honor Society for International Scholars, and has published and spoken extensively. Dr. Larry Rhyne is an associate professor of management at San Diego State University, focusing on international strategic management and on finding effective strategies for companies in high technology and emerging industries in a global context. Prior to joining the faculty at San Diego State University, Professor Rhyne taught at the J.L. Kellogg Graduate School of Management at Northwestern University and the Stewart School of Business Administration at the Illinois Institute of Technology. In addition, he has 8 years of corporate management experience. Dr. Rhyne has published numerous articles in a variety of well-known journals in his field. His latest publication is New Technology Market Entry Strategies, Lessons Learned in the 2000 Handbook of Business Strategy. He holds a Ph.D. from Northwestern University and an MBA from the University of Missouri. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Let us begin with an introductory question. This question has 3 parts. Does the New Economy Organization refer only to leading multinational or global corporations, or is it also applicable to small business enterprises, to educational institutions, and to government agencies? How expensive is the technology investment that new economy organizations need to make? And is it affordable in developing or in poor countries?
Dr. Saba, if I can relate to the first part of that very long question. I think it is by all means applicable to small organizations, small businesses, to higher institutions of higher education and government agencies. Many government agencies and educational institutions already have infrastructure in place. And for the smaller business, I think the technology, the cost of the technology is decreasing rapidly, and the opportunities for a small business to be a new economy organization are becoming greater every day.
Doctor.
I would agree with that completely. In fact, in many of the small, in the e-commerce organizations, it's the small organizations focusing on a specific niche and delivering what that niche wants very well that are the most successful right now.
Thank you for your answers, gentlemen. Let us now begin with Module 1, in which Ken Golden will introduce us to some of the characteristics of new economy organizations.
Thank you. It is a great pleasure and privilege to be asked to speak to you about such an important topic. I'd like to begin by discussing a few key characteristics of the new economy organization, a phenomenon which is rapidly spreading around the world. I will also be providing some practical ideas as to how you can integrate some of these new organization concepts into your workplace as it evolves in response to the new economy. And lastly, I would like to present a real-life case example to illustrate the central concepts that I will be presenting. Later, Dr. Larry Rhyne will speak to you from an organizational strategy point of view. He will be adding some very important research that he has been conducting on new economy organizations to this discussion. New economy organizations are characterized by flattened hierarchies. Decision-making is not bound up in layer upon layer of hierarchical chain of command. Management staff have been reduced to an absolute minimum. The new economy organization also utilizes the latest information and telecommunication technologies to increase the speed of decision-making and the flow of data across traditionally rigid organizational and geographic boundaries. This is a vastly different model than the highly bureaucratic and hierarchical organizations that most of us work in presently. And it is applicable in education, business, or the government sectors in both developed as well as in developing economies. Now, this bureaucratic hierarchical pattern that characterizes almost all organizations today was developed in the United States and in Europe in the industrial age of, say, the 19th century. In order to work in large factories and assembly lines, workers had to be in the same place at the same time. As we move into the 21st century, the broad array of telecommunication and information technologies permits the refiguring of our organizations in order to meet the rapidly changing demands of business, educational, and governmental environments. Numerous challenges in today's environment have created a climate for change. Organizations are decentralizing to be able to respond more quickly and accurately to customer needs. The global economy has increased the numbers and scope of multinational organizations. The downsizing of organizations has created pressure to implement increasingly flat or horizontal organizational structures. Flat organizational structures of necessity disperse employees both geographically and organizationally. Governmental deregulation and privatization of services is becoming ever more common. State and federal agencies are increasingly using technology to reduce departmental redundancies and increase coordination of services. In universities, professors in many fields of studies from commerce to health to education are recognizing that national borders are becoming increasingly more porous. International studies and information exchanges have become more important than ever in the past. International linkages among universities are becoming more common. 21st century challenges require 21st century organizations. The networked organization has become the central element of the new economy organization. The networked organization will not wipe out all of the old forms. Rather, it includes them and adds new capabilities. When industrial age hierarchies formed, we didn't lose the ability to work in small groups that characterized the pre-industrial agricultural communities. A complex networked organization will, in fact, involve hierarchy, bureaucracy, and small groups, as well as distinctly networked relationships. The key is to select the best form of organization for a particular kind of work. The easiest way to transition from a traditional hierarchical organization to a network organization is to add lateral links to connect the various functions. Bureaucratic specialization is not going away, but the new links allow communication to flow horizontally as well as vertically. Precious time is saved. Now, networked organizations partner with internal and external units and form alliances with other functional areas, as well as vendors, distributors, customers, students, citizens, and even in some cases, even competitors, in order to achieve goals. These dispersed groups of collaborators cross formally sacrosanct boundaries, both inside and outside of the organization. This development has created a need for what are called virtual teams. In today's business environment, teams have been accepted as a smart way to organize for flexible and cost-effective operations. With recent advances in communication and information technology, however, team members no longer must be housed in one location in order to work together. They can form virtual teams, teams with a common purpose that use technology to cross time zones, long distances, and the boundaries of organizations. They become a natural unit for the networked organization. Virtual teams allow an organization that is spread across a country, a continent, or even the globe to engage in highly productive activities without spending large amounts of money for travel and meetings. Additionally, virtual teams allow companies to select the best people to work together on a project without regard to locality. These key employees are no longer required to relocate or to suffer chronic jet lag, but can collaborate with their teammates by using various electronic technologies. Many large organizations are actively seeking ways to prepare people to work effectively in the new and unpredictable world of remote connectivity. The more we learn about the complexities, both technically and psychologically, of developing and maintaining virtual working relationship with others, the more organizations realize that it is just too costly to stumble along in connecting networks. Sun Microsystems, for instance, is developing a new curriculum on Teams that will cover aspects of virtual teaming. Apple Computer, McDonald's, Corning, Toyota, Marks & Spencer, IBM, AT&T, Travelers, Pacific Bell, Panasonic, JCPenney, the Gerling Group, and Softtek are among some of the leaders in developing expertise and linking networked organizations with virtual teams. Now, as most of us have learned the hard way, you cannot simply put a group of people together and expect them to function as an efficient and productive team. It just doesn't work that way. Team members need training, they need coaching, they need leadership if they are to be productive and to remain so. Similarly, virtual teamwork does not come naturally. Just by virtue of being able to connect various experts in various fields or managers from various locales electronically does not ensure that they will be able to function effectively and efficiently as a team in practice. Mastering the technical requirements of the media, that's the easy part. There is a need for the kind of training in which people actually practice setting up remote agendas, running virtual meetings, dealing with performance problems, conversing with others at a distance, and leading a team of remote members. Potential virtual team members also need to be better trained in the appropriate use of technology so that they don't, for instance, bury each other in so many email messages that they start to tune each other out. Team members must learn how to manage, store, and distribute the information they generate. There is a need for training simulations of this sort to prepare organizations for networked communication. Individuals assigned to virtual teams will need specialized training, not only in how to use the technology, but also in how to effectively communicate using the electronic medium. For instance, many of the traditional cues of social interaction, such as body language, hand gestures, are lost even in the best teleconferencing system. Virtual team members must be taught how to maintain effective communication within the constraints of the virtual environment. This may require training members to use considerably more linguistic precision in their written communication. They will be unable to modify their speech with shoulder shrugs or descriptive gestures in an email message. I would urge each of you to consider learning more about virtual teamwork so that you will be prepared to exercise effective leadership in your respective organizations. This is a new and exciting specialty that you may want to consider adding to your abilities. I would now like to address the tools of the new economy organization, communication and information technology. The array of technology available to facilitate connectivity and networking is staggering and changing daily. There used to be an old rule of thumb called the 50-foot rule. The 50-foot rule dictated that if people work more than 50 feet apart, they are not very likely to collaborate. The new electronic technologies have totally invalidated the 50-foot rule. The more sophisticated technology includes desktop video conferencing systems. Each team member is provided a computer with a camera mounted on top. Connection to other team members is managed through software within the user's computer. The desktop system can recreate the audio and video face-to-face interactions of conventional teams, making possible more complex levels of communication. Although technologically sophisticated, the desktop system is a relatively simple system for users to operate and relatively inexpensive to install. It does not require, for instance, expensive room video conference equipment. Team members do not have to congregate in a specific area or room to communicate, but can do so more conveniently from their desks. This promotes more informality and spontaneity in the ongoing communication virtual teams must engage in. Collaborative software systems, sometimes called groupware, allow virtual team members to work both interactively and independently. Software including group calendars and schedules, bulletin boards and whiteboards can support project management, product design, document creation, and information analysis. Currently available software allows for multiple authorship of documents and presentations, and the joint development of databases, spreadsheets, and other information resources. The development of intranets within organizations provides the advantage of using internet technology to disseminate organizational information and enhance inter-employee communication, while still maintaining system security. Access to the intranet is password protected. Intranets allow virtual teams to archive text, visual, audio, numerical data in a user-friendly format. Intranets also allow virtual teams to keep other organizational members and important outside constituents such as suppliers and customers up to date on the team's progress. Intranets enable the team to monitor other ongoing organizational projects that might affect the task at hand. Video conferencing for IP or ISND lines and computer-based audio conferencing are tools that many larger organizations employ. Smaller organizations or units can lease time in facilities that promote conferencing without having to invest in their own infrastructure. Many organizations opt for simpler technologies such as telephone conferencing, email, fax, voicemail, and real-time chatware. These types of connectivity do not require large investments in equipment nor sophisticated ongoing technical support services to maintain them. Now, there are clearly strengths and limitations of all these tools I've listed. Most organizations are learning that the task to be accomplished should dictate the medium. For instance, video conferencing can be particularly effective for solving problems. Email is useful for generating and sharing information and ideas. Audio conferencing can provide a medium for more spontaneous and creative brainstorming. Clearly, most workplace projects and tasks require the use of multiple media. For example, the organization or your organization may choose to utilize occasional video conferencing to establish goals, project parameters, and to coordinate ongoing progress. More frequent telephone calls or audio conferencing are needed to deal with day-to-day implementation. Email can be employed to quickly share data and information on an ongoing basis. But the technology is only a small part of virtual teamwork. As Bob Buckman, an early proponent of virtual teams, said, it's 90% people and 10% technology. Interestingly, organizations typically spend 90% of their time and financial resources on technology with only 10% investment in people. Now, this is not to minimize the technology challenges, which, depending on the level of sophistication chosen, can be granted enormous. What most companies face in practice, though, is that people problems surface after the excitement and novelty of the virtual team process has worn off. As we say, the honeymoon is often short-lived. Organizations have found that it can be extremely hard to get individuals to work together compatibly and productively when face-to-face contact is limited and communication is confined almost exclusively to telephone, fax, computer, and other electronic means. As a consultant, I specialize in developing change strategies and managing resistance to change. As a major innovation in how we communicate with each other, the creation of network teams naturally provokes resistance. Managers need to understand and be prepared to deal with resistance to the adoption of virtual teams. Some of you may remember the 4 types of resistance to change I outlined in a recent video conference on e-commerce. These are personal, structural, cultural, and environmental. There is often tremendous personal resistance to communicating electronically with so little of the normal, direct human contact people are used to. Missing are the slap on the back, the sincere handshake, the warm smile, the acknowledging eye contact, or the understanding nod of the head that helps us to accept difficult assignments, criticism, or setbacks, and in all helps us stay motivated. Personal discomfort or feelings of inadequacy in relation to the use of technology called technophobia creates resistance and the underutilization of electronic communication. Secondly, the current organizational structure may not allow for effective training programs and technical support for virtual teamwork. In addition, the organization may be using various technologies that are not necessarily compatible with each other. There may not be any type of recognition or reward systems to reinforce distant teamwork. Thirdly, the culture of the organization may traditionally have been run as an old boy network, where important decisions and policies are made on the golf course or in a club after hours. Also, some managers may only call meetings whenever there is a pressing need. This culture or tradition, of course, leaves important workers scattered across the country or the globe out of the information or decision-making process. And lastly, the technology infrastructure that will support remote connectivity in the outlying areas of a country may be missing or outdated or weak. This is a type of environmental resistance or constraint that will limit the effectiveness of networked organizations. Both research and practice have universally shown that there is one critical factor, that will determine if a team, virtual or otherwise, will work successfully. And that one simple, low-tech factor is, you guessed it, trust. Team members need to be sure that everyone will fulfill his or her obligations and perform in a consistent, predictable manner. Virtual teams establish or do not establish trust at the beginning of their relationships. The first interactions are key. Now, this is very different from conventional teams that establish trust over time through many ongoing face-to-face interactions. And as sophisticated as electronic media can be in attempting to replicate human interaction, research and experience has shown that forming a team without face-to-face meetings is a setup for failure. Without the trust and mutual understanding developed in face-to-face meetings, it becomes very difficult to ward off the inevitable interpersonal problems and distrust that may arise among people who work closely together without ever being together. Now, this is especially true if the team is going to be functioning for many months or years, and particularly if the team members face language and cultural differences. Occasional ongoing meetings to sustain a high level of trust are also necessary, depending on how closely and frequently the team members must collaborate. Face-to-face meetings are a requirement for virtual teamwork. This may sound like a contradiction in terms, and it certainly will seem so to the executive or chief financial officer who has just invested a tremendous amount of money in technology with the hope of quickly recouping this investment by canceling expensive travel and meeting budgets.